We're happy to welcome you in to Huddle Up with Howard Richards of the Mizzou football broadcast team on the Tiger Radio Network. Howard, obviously, we can start with that game down in Nashville. You were there. I was down there in the stands, and unfortunately didn't go the way the Tigers wanted it to. What's your takeaway from just the craziness of a real back-and-forth game between top 15 teams?
Well, certainly it was unfortunate the way the game ended. The last play, Hail Mary, the receiver catches the ball, and of course he's short of the goal line. It just was sort of the complexion of the game, right? You take a step forward and two steps back. You're right on the verge of it. It would have been a tremendous win for Mizzou, especially being on the road in a game of that magnitude. I think was the most viewed game day or game following game day in week 8, I guess, in history of game day doing it. So that's significant in the fact that Missouri was a part of that. However, just going back to the game itself, the key points, obviously you lose Bo Prabula on what I call is a very questionable, dirty play by the defender, Josh Singh. There were calls that were made by the officials that were questionable. There were 2 offsides penalties or would have been penalties had they been called that they missed. One nullifying on the penalty they called for a leg whip or tripping. The player that did it was Dominic Giudice. He had no effect on the play. It was an offside play and still questionable as to what it was in and of itself. So I have talked to a couple of other officials in the past, and Mizzou got burned on one last year against Texas A&M with a receiver downfield. And we all kind of believe that penalty, if it's not place side, if it has no impact whatsoever on the play, that it just shouldn't be called. It's nitpicking. You should be looking at, the emphasis of the play, and that's in that case the running back or the receiver who has the ball and what's happening immediately around him. So anyway, it's unfortunate, but the one thing that I always say is your play should dictate whether you win or lose, not the officiating. And I'll stand by that. So you make enough plays where you win the game, and regardless of what happens with the officials. So I don't know. Even the controversial call where Prabula gets hurt.
Right.
I didn't like it. I would prefer to run the running backs there. You have those guys on your roster to make tough yardage when you need it. In thirds and fourths and ones, thirds and fourths and goals, hand the ball off to them. They're built for that type of running, inside running between the tackles. And your quarterback, even though he does run it on design plays and when he decides to run when he has to, but he's not built for that. Or put a big offensive lineman or defensive lineman, 300-plus pounder. Alabama's doing it. Other teams have done it in the past. Just do it. I just give yourself a chance. Go big on big and let the chips fall where they may. I'm just not a big fan of playing at a disadvantage.
Yeah, and you really think about it, Howard, early in the season when the offense had it going against power conference opponents like Kansas, like South Carolina, it feels like Mizzou had established its identity as being a team that was going to play good defense and they were going to run the ball on you. And I'm just curious, kind of over the past 3 games, obviously defenses like Auburn, like Alabama that have stuffed the run and made a point to do so, maybe throw Kirby Moore in the play calling into a little bit of a different situation. But what have you seen in terms of Mizzou maybe not adhering to its identity quite as much in recent games?
Go back to the Auburn game, because I went and rewatched that game. And there were probably 3 or 4 plays that I can recall that if one person makes the key block on that play, there's probably a large gain or a touchdown made on the play. So it's less about what Auburn was doing, but it was more about bad technique by an offensive lineman, or Northfleet not kind of running through on the route, stopping in the middle of the field, and the quarterback didn't necessarily see him. It's those little things. And when you hear the phrase, play to the whistle, play through to the whistle, block to the whistle, there's a reason that happens. If someone's open late, or if you're sustaining your block until that whistle blows, oftentimes in that Auburn game as well, um, you're blocking a guy and then he comes off and he's the one who makes the play. Had you sustained that block and maintained contact, again, you're going to gain more yardage on it. So listen, these are coaching points, more about that and technique than about play calling. So there are areas that have to be cleaned up from a team standpoint. Whether making better decisions as a coaching staff, that's one thing, but also players have to execute better. And every play counts. Every single play counts. Can't emphasize that enough. I've said it before. I'll continue to say it, especially when you see evidence of, you give up on one play and boom, it blows up because someone's inability or failure to completely execute. So that's what I'm seeing. It's less about what the other teams are doing, even though Bama and Auburn have really good, and Vanderbilt, really good defenses. You got to execute.
Got to execute. And I think back to Drinkwitz last week talking about maybe being timid at times with what they're doing in their execution, and something that obviously the Tigers want to look to address moving forward. I would say this, though, about Saturday's game, Howard, maybe the shame of it all is just how well the defense took Diego Pavia out of the game. Not many teams have been able to limit him the way the Tigers were able to do in that game. What did you make of the game plan and the way that they executed on that side of the ball against a very dynamic quarterback in Diego Pavia?
It was a really good game plan, but the players are the ones who made it happen on the field. They got after Pavia. He was 10 of 19 for 53% completion rate. That's pretty good. Vandy only completed 1/3 down. Missouri outgained Vandy in total yardage. I think Missouri also won the time of possession battle. So virtually every statistical category that mattered, Missouri won, except the one that really counts, and it's the scoreboard, due to unfortunate circumstances. But listen, maybe it's a catalyst going forward. You've got a tough stretch in November, starting with Texas A&M, still undefeated, and a team that without any self-inflicted screw-ups, they're going to be in the college football playoff and probably playing for the SEC championship. But Missouri can get right in there and be a factor, and you do some things, you execute better, and maybe you upset Texas A&M. Missouri's had some close. I mean, A&M's had some close games in the past that could have gone either way. And listen, if Missouri understands what it's still playing for here, that A&M game on November 8th is going to mean something. And it should mean something to the Tigers, regardless of who you line up at quarterback. But I'm excited to see what Matt Zollers is going to bring to the table, especially having an extra week to prepare for the Aggies. Could be a really exciting game. He's poised enough. He's shown us that I think the moment's not too big for him. Now, that's only a small sample size, but let's see how he manages, throughout 4 quarters of a game.
Yeah, and it was really compelling. His ability to come into that environment at a top 10 opponent's place and keep things moving. I would say even the downfield passing attack showed a little bit of life under Zollers. And there were a lot of elements that were difficult. You saw some freshman moments with the exchange with the running back that results in the fumble, and different situational spots like that you kind of expect some growing pains with, Howard. But based on what we saw from him, how do you expect that to look in a couple of weeks when the Tigers take on the Aggies, where Eli Drinkwitz said after the Vandy game, look, yeah, we're not probably going to Atlanta, but we still see what's on the table for this team, and 10-2 is still out there if we go and play our game. That's seemingly going to have to come with Matt Zollers. But I'm curious for what some reasonable expectations would be for the kid in your mind.
Listen, I expect Missouri to go out and compete and play like they're going to win, like they've got a shot to win this game. And you don't know what happens. Big plays, turnovers. A&M is not immune to turning the football over. They're not a team. No team ever in the history of football is immune to making mistakes and having a little streak of bad luck go their way. And if you play hard, again, if you're playing like you're playing to win something, you can often force a team into making mistakes. So that's the approach that Missouri should have, regardless of the opponent. And listen, again, Missouri could easily be 8-0 right now, with a few strokes of good luck here and again, better execution. By no means is the season lost, and you still have the ability to sort of upset the apple cart in the SEC. If you play like, with intentionality, with determination, with no quit in, what you're bringing to the football field. So it's all in front of the Tigers, and if you somehow can run the table, finish 10-2. Good things are going to happen at the end of the season.
No, there's no doubt about that.
In the SEC. There will be some interesting happenings in November in this league. You can bet on it.
There always is. And I'm just curious kind of how you view the hierarchy right now in the conference, Howard, after what was a pretty wild weekend. Ole Miss taking down Oklahoma on the road, Alabama surviving a scare at South Carolina. Who's kind of standing out to you from some of those other matchups and teams that still have their eyes on the prize as well when it comes to the college football playoff?
Well, certainly just looking at the teams that Missouri has to play in front of it, we've talked about A&M. Oklahoma really has a good defense, of course, probably on the same level as Auburn. I still think Auburn has the best defense in the conference. Vanderbilt's right up there as well. Oklahoma is probably right there too. They're having struggles offensively. And you hope that they continue. You don't want them to get healthy and start playing well all of a sudden in a couple of weeks when Missouri plays there. But you kind of know what you're up against. You've played an away game at Auburn. It was tough. You've played an away game now in Vanderbilt. That was tough. So you know what the expectation is when you go to Norman. But certainly not overlooking a team like Mississippi State after A&M. And listen, that's a team that they've had a little stroke of bad luck. They started off 4-0. They only won 3 games all of last year. So they had some momentum and, unfortunately missed out on a few breaks here and there. But I expect them to be formidable when Missouri plays them on November 15th as well. So, and you know what you're going to get with Arkansas. Having made the move to go away from Sam Pittman, and Bobby Petrino, of course, is the interim. It'll be the last home game of the season for them. So Petrino's probably coaching for that job. I'm sure he'd love to have it. But, if you have any kind of pride at all, you're going to play hard. Seniors are going to be there. They want to play hard. They want to, have something to sort of remember them on their last home game. So none of these matchups in November are going to be cakewalks by any stretch of the imagination. But to me, that makes it exciting. You don't have, some team that's a doormat that you're going to win the game and it's hard to get up for them. But this is not the case for Missouri in November.
Yeah, and you mentioned Howard teams coaching with that interim. We know with Arkansas that will be the case, and Taylor Green's still a quarterback that can give you fits. So we look forward to that matchup this coming weekend. I'm kind of looking at Florida and Georgia in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, as they call it. Florida coaching with an interim right now. We can talk a little bit about the coaching carousel as it continues to spin. But curious in a situation like that, how you would view a team like a Florida that says, hey, we may not be going to the playoff, but we're playing for pride, and we have a chance to topple a rival in a game that would be really impactful for their season.
They could be very dangerous. Why? Because, as you just mentioned, they really have nothing to lose. There's going to be a new coaching staff. So why not throw everything at a team like Georgia and, let the chips fall where they may. I pull out every stop I could. I'd gamble. I'd blitz a lot. I would do everything that makes sense and throw caution into the wind. Just go out there and be aggressive and allow your guys or encourage them to have fun on a game like this. Because obviously big changes are coming, but at least, if you go out and sell out and enjoy what you're doing and lay it on the line, you can walk away with your head hung high, saying, we gave it all we could. They may be a better team, but they know that they had a fight that particular day. So, and that's what makes games like that even interesting, because you just never know. And Florida has good players as well, and at some point the shift is going to occur. They're going to start beating Georgia again, and could it happen this weekend? Sure could. Likely, don't know. If I knew, I'd be in Vegas instead of doing today.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Well, I want to ask you about, Howard, the coaching carousel, because it just seems just about unprecedented with how many openings, teams that are already deciding in the month of October that they're going to be moving on. LSU joining the ranks this past weekend after their team under Brian Kelly just didn't really hold up against Texas A&M. That's a home game. You expect LSU at night, Death Valley at night, to win those games, and they just fell really flat. So Brian Kelly is on the chopping block, adding just another pretty prominent program to this list. What's been your view of all of this so far, Howard, just happening at a really unusually early portion of the season where a lot of these teams with their coaches that, yeah, we may want to poach this guy or that guy, they're still coaching the current programs for yet another month as all of this is kind of happening and unfolding behind the scenes?
Well, I think the surprises started from the very beginning of the season with Alabama losing to Florida State. And, of course, that created a buzz around Kalen DeBoer. But they have righted the ship as Alabama and not lost since that time. Of course, the first big axe to fall was at Penn State with them deciding to fire James Franklin after losing to, I guess it was Northwestern. And, they had lost, I guess, 3 games, by leading maybe 20 points or something like that. And James Franklin, man, he resurrected the Penn State program.
Yeah.
So did he deserve to be fired? In my eyes, no. But, I'm not at Penn State. Look at Brian Kelly at LSU. What's interesting there, just kind of look at the history of his 3 predecessors, Nick Saban, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron. Each of those coaches won a national championship within the first 4 years of their tenures. Obviously, with Brian Kelly, that was not going to happen. They saw that. They saw that the fact that he wasn't going to do that, and then losing the way they did at home to A&M, sealed his fate. And, I haven't really seen Virginia Tech, haven't seen Stanford, can't remember what other openings. There could be an opening in North Carolina. So it has been a season where you think, no job is really safe if you're losing to opponents that everyone assumes that you should win. Now let's address the elephant in the room about the future of Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. Nothing bad, of course, with what he's doing, but with his name being linked to a number of those jobs. And here's my opinion. Here's why I think Missouri retains him and he doesn't jump ship for another one. Just look at what I just mentioned about LSU. He could go there. Let's just say they offered him. He could go there. But if he doesn't win it in 3 to 4 years, he's going to be out of a job as well. Because the next guy they hire, he knows what the expectation is, right? You better win one within 4 years, or certainly look a lot better doing so. And you better not lose to teams that you should lose to. Florida's fired probably 4 or 5 coaches since Missouri's been in the SEC. The pressure to win at those schools is far, far greater than it ever will be at Missouri, in my opinion. Drinkwitz has built a program and a tremendous culture, and all you have to do is ask the players. They'll tell you what the culture is like. The program is ascending. He's had back-to-back double-digit win seasons and has a chance to do that again in 2025, something that no other Mizzou coach has ever done. The one thing that he hasn't done yet is to play in an SEC championship and win a conference championship. But here's the thing, Missouri hasn't won a conference championship since 1969. They did play they won the division in the SEC when there still were divisions in 2013 and 14. But those are teasers. You got to win it all. And that's how coaches are judged by, conference championships, the ability to move on. But certainly, getting into the playoffs, the college football playoff, is a goal of Eli's. And it will be a shame to leave now. But I think also the factors that no one talks about, his family is secure. He's 4 daughters, his wife, they all enjoy living in Columbia. The level of appreciation with the fan base has only grown. You've had X amount of 15, 16, 17 straight sellouts at home. It's easier to build something and continue to build in a comfortable environment where you're not facing excessive scrutiny from week to week. He's building the brand of Missouri football, and those are important factors. Recruiting's, in some ways, it's easier because now you get players calling Drinkwitz because they want to come to the program. That's significant. The portal has an NIL has narrowed, the talent gap between elite teams and the rest of the teams. So it's becoming more like the NFL. From week to week, you just don't know who's going to win. You may have some dominant teams, but they're not necessarily dynasty teams that you expect them to win every single week, and they will. It's not like that. There's going to be more and more upsets each and every week. So I think the parity aspect of it, regardless of how you feel or if you hate NIL, if you hate the transfer portal, you love to see teams in the past that haven't been as competitive be right there. Look at Indiana University right now. Look what they've done. They were a playoff team last year, and for all accounts, they're probably going to be a playoff team again this year. And that's significant. And you can point directly to the transfer portal and NIL and in college football parity. And Drake has an opportunity to do the same thing. Vanderbilt, who would have guessed? 3 years ago when Clark Lee took over, no one would have ever expected Vanderbilt to ascend to where it is right now. So the possibilities, if you're Eli Drinkwitz, I think your road is easier to get to that point. And I think the chances are better than not that you continue to be successful, and he's going to get to that playoff sooner rather than later. So I say for all those reasons that he stays in Missouri. I fully expect that he'll get another contract extension, or they'll just completely tear up his deal and give him a new deal soon. Because you don't want another coach to come in and start all over and rebuild your program, rebuild your culture. That's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Fans are happy with what they have. The Missouri administration is happy with what they have in Eli Drinkwitz also.
I think they've done a nice job of really giving him the keys to the kingdom and kind of allowing him to mold the program in his image, getting him what he feels he needs or wants when it's resources for assistant coaching pool, whatever the conversation, facility upgrades, making sure that we've got the fan base support to sell out these games and give his team the support that it needs to be successful. I think you make a great point, Howard. And I do believe if Drink were to leave for greener pastures, which of course, as you mentioned, the grass isn't always greener at some of those places, which would be, facing a little bit more scrutiny potentially from week to week in those down years. I really don't think it's going to come down to money because, as you said, in this NIL era, I believe Missouri has done a really nice job of recognizing where it needs to be in order to take advantage of the current climate that we're in. And I would just be really surprised if they're not fully prepared to give Drink what he feels he wants or needs. And if he believes he can do what he wants to do and achieve what he wants to achieve at Missouri, they're going to equip him any way possible to be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's right there. If the administration at the university is smart, which I think they are, they make this move as soon as possible. To just quell all the noise. It'd be great to do it this week prior to going into A&M. So I look for that to happen. I really do. Really, any day now.
I would love that. And even if they don't announce it right away, they want to wait for the right time for the PR. I can live with that. But to think that it could be happening behind the scenes, that would do my heart well. And we'll see, obviously, what happens, because it is some crazy times. Howard, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you if there was anything from the NFL ranks this past weekend that really stood out to you. I kind of teased you a little bit off the air about that Cowboy defense against the Broncos, but was there anything from the league right now with the way the Chiefs are playing and they're fully healthy? Any team really standing out to you from this past weekend?
Well, I think the Chiefs, they seemingly have righted the ship. Again, it's still not quite midseason yet. The trade deadline for NFL is on Tuesday, November 4th. Who knows how many moves can happen then? But, listen, nothing surprises me about the Cowboys, and I'll just address it real quickly, because they just, when you trade away your best player and you don't make, significant moves in the offseason to improve your defense, especially when you have an offense and Dak Prescott was playing before Sunday at, an all-pro MVP type level, it's just not fair. And I think, the focus has to be whatever we need to do defensively. And we know that the resources are there with the Cowboys ownership. And we don't have enough time in this show to delve into all the other things that I wish they would do.
Yeah.
But look at some of the other teams in the league. Look at Indianapolis. It just shows that I always say this, it only takes one team for one player, to find a home where there's a fit. In New York, Daniel Jones didn't fit in. It wasn't a great situation for him, and that's why he wasn't successful. He didn't have the pieces around him. Yet he goes to the Colts, and he's playing like the player that I think everyone expected he could play when they drafted him.
Yeah.
Drake May at New England having a tremendous year. Jordan Love at Green Bay having a pretty good year himself, but a lot of talent around them. Kudos to Green Bay for pulling off the trade with the Cowboys to bring Micah Parsons there. His impact has been felt immediately. The Giants, they were teetering. Unfortunately, Cam Scatterboo had a major injury, and that I think that sort of derailed the fun that they were having. With Jackson Dart at quarterback. These two little rookies are trying to set the league on fire. So it's been tempered a while, but if they continue to get more pieces around Dart and Scatterboo when he comes back, hopefully he will, then the Giants are going to ascend. You've seen when you've got key players to get hurt also, Jaden Daniels at Washington. They have not played as well as they did with him fully healthy last year. The 49ers are playing better. Team Jacksonville's playing better. Carolina's playing better. So I think the decision making within those organizations, having more youth, people, fresh minds, I think have made the league a little more balanced. You're always going to have certain teams, I think, that are going to be really good, like the Buffaloes, the Philadelphias, the Kansas Cities, because of the stability, but also they've got really, really loaded rosters, with talent at key areas. And that's where it's going to be hard to knock them off their horses for a while. Not to say that a team won't come in there and upset them, but if you build a sturdy roster and you've got depth up and down at every key position, then you're going to win. 80 to 90% of your games year in and year out. And if you approach building your roster with that mindset, success is always going to be in your laps.
Going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. I do think toward that next year with Jackson Dart, Scadaboo hopefully back healthy, and Malik Neighbors too, that could be an interesting offense in New York. But a lot of teams are looking to make that push for the playoffs, and we'll be interested to see if anything happens at that Tuesday trade deadline. It's been a blast, Howard, getting to huddle up with you, filling in for Mike Claiborne. Be right back here next week and maybe break down a little bit of what may have unfolded before that NFL trade deadline on Tuesday, November 4th. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel here at STL Sports Central for all of our content throughout the football season. For Howard Richards, I'm Brenden Schaeffer. We'll talk to you next time.
Hey, Missouri, get ready. The wait is almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State, and you can sign up today. New Missouri customers get $300 in bonus bets when DraftKings launches on December 1st. Download the app now and place a $5 bet when DraftKings goes live, and DraftKings Sportsbook will bring everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning-fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when DraftKings officially goes live in Missouri, you'll be betting with the Sportsbook app trusted by millions. It's safe, it's secure, and has fast money withdrawals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when DraftKings goes live December 1st in Missouri. That's code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.